Just want to make sure not to roll up the stage. That would make for a quick talk, wouldn't it?
Cheesy got you.
Thanks, Cheesy, I appreciate it. I'm going to talk to you today, like we said, leading with imperfect feet. I'm going to be mirroring how a simple walk on the beach last February really mimics the same approach when I do change and leadership in large organizations. Just like my feet are imperfect, so too is big organizational change and leadership. So I'm going to share with you my story. Last February, my wife and I booked a vacation, a 2-week vacation. The first week was a cruise where that wasn't really memorable from what I can remember because it was all inclusive. But I was told that I had a fantastic time. The second week, we spent at Florida. And what do you do when you go to Florida? You go to the beach. And I've been to the beach a lot in my 45 years. That February, I was sitting on the top of the beach, looking down to the water and the sky. And it's something I've always done when I went to the beach, because there was something about walking out in the distance where the water met the sky. It looked like another place, something that is different than how I felt, and probably better, because it's something I've never experienced. For 45 years, I've always looked at there and wondered what it would be like to be in the water. But I let my fears always stop me from making that journey all the way down to the water. So I spent my 45 years seeing that perspective. But today was going to be different. Today I was going to try to make the walk to the beach. Now you might think to yourself, walking on the beach is walking on the beach is no big deal. Hold on. Walking on the beach is no big deal. But as you can tell, walking for me isn't my strength. I was born with cerebral palsy. So when I was born, I was told that I wouldn't live past 3 days, and I really couldn't talk until I was 12. Unfortunately for all of you today, I've lived and I can talk quite well. So now you stop listening to me. But from an early age, I was always told the things I wouldn't be able to do and couldn't do. And my parents, thankfully, were very resilient and stubborn. Maybe I'd take after them. But I always had to go through the world that was unknown, that was different. I can't go through the world like you do. I always had to find a different way to achieve the simplest things in order to have a life. Because I had a choice. I could have either stayed in bed my whole life, or I could figure out how to get up and get out and do things. And from an early age, I've had to depend on others. You know, I've been leading since I was 12 years old, because I'd have caregivers come in that would get me up in the morning so I could shave, shower, and dress. Unlike most of you, my helper puts on my pants one leg at a time. But I was always dependent on them to do great things. So 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I did a walk for Terry Fox. It was something I never did before, to walk 5K. But my normal stubborn self, I trained for about 2 years and was able to get in shape to walk 5 kilometers through the help of friends. So even though I was scared and nervous to do it, I was more fear of not even trying. So I didn't know if I would make the whole 5K, but luckily now I can tell you I did do it, and I did it in a shorter time than I thought. But again, it was through others. So let's go back to the beach. So that day I was kind of staring down at my imperfect feet, made the decision that today was the day I was going to make a walk down to the beach and into the water. And like everybody, when I was sitting there looking at it, I was kind of concerned of what the other people would think. Because there was people all over the beach doing, whatever they do at the beach. And I was like, are they going to think I'm different? And so I asked my wife and friend to stand me up and start walking to the beach. Now, this is the first time I ever walked without shoes. Because I did the 5K, obviously, with shoes. It was my first time in my 45 years that my bare feet touched the sand. And I still remember what a beautiful feeling it was. I remember stepping in and feeling how warm and inviting it was. But what I also noticed, it was harder to pull my feet out of the sand than it was pavement because it's heavier when it's on it. But another thing I noticed too was, because it took so much concentration because the sand was very unstable, was how the sand would fit its way through my crooked toes and my imperfect feet and just hug it. But as I started to walk, I was concerned of what people would think. What are they doing there with him? Is he alive? Are they trying to hide the body? What are they doing? But then I started walking, and the steps were hard, but it was getting easier as I was going through it. And then my ultimate fear happened. I fell. And I remember when I fell, how many people gathered around me. And it was kind of scary. I was kind of embarrassed. I thought I failed. I had to make a decision at that moment. I could either get back up and go back to my chair, where I've spent the previous 45 years, or I could continue on and continue to move toward that beach and to the water. Obviously, I'm going to continue telling the story so you know what I chose. So I got up, started walking, and then I fell again. But unlike the first time, it was easier to get back up. And then over time, it was less of a fall and more of a stumble as I was building momentum. But then it got to the point where the dry sand stops and you get to wet sand. As much as I enjoy dry sand in my bare feet, wet sand doesn't feel quite as nice. I don't know what it's like to step in dog shit bare feet, but that's got to be pretty close. So as I stepped in the wet sand, it was harder because when you try to lift your foot out of wet sand, I realized it was heavier because you weren't only just lifting your feet, you were also picking up things while you were moving. But I still continued to go through the water because I wanted to know what the unknown was like. And the water was really weird, because I've been in swimming pools, but there's no current in swimming pools. So as I was walking in the water, when the waves would come, sometimes I would have to brace myself and fight it, and sometimes I just let it take me. But I kept walking. And as I was walking, the people that were walking me were like, "Have you gone far enough?" I go, No, I haven't. And I kept walking, and they said, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I haven't done enough. I have to keep walking." And then eventually the water was getting to about my chin, so I figured I better stop soon or else I'm going to drown. But I kind of felt, did I do enough? And then it wasn't until they turned me around that I looked at the shore, and it was looking at my life in a different perspective than I've ever seen before. What I thought was so big, scary, and what really mattered looked smaller from the distance and insignificant. I could see that I was just one speck in a bigger ecosystem. But I didn't realize how far I went until I seen where I started. Every little step took so much concentration and effort, I lost sight to how far I really moved out to see that. So, as I said, I mimicked the walk I did at the beach to what I do at large organizations. So I do work for a living because my wife won't support me. I've been a change agent that helped a lot of large organizations change from where they were to where they want to be. I've worked with OpenText, PTC, and now with Scotia. And it's in the spirit of moving to Agile, it's really getting them to do things and feel things differently than they ever did before. And like I did the walk on the beach about being vulnerable, embracing the struggle, and really working through others, is the same thing I do when I'm helping organizations move to where they think they can go. And the thing is before you take on a work assignment or before I decided to walk on the beach, I had to make a decision that is the why worth the struggle that I'm going to have to go through. And before you make that change or you make that difference, you have to really question that decision. You really have to come to terms with the why is going to be greater than the pain. So like I said, when I do this, I've never done it alone. I've always had a great team that I've got to work with, because it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a whole lot more to change an organization. And I don't look just to interview people or hire people with immediate skills. If anybody sat into one of my interviews, they're quite unorthodox, because I really dig in to see what that person's made out of. I want to see what grit they have, what kind of determination. Do they have the ability to pick themselves up when they fall? I do ask the cursory questions to make sure to determine how much they've lied on their resume. Because, if they really want the job, they've fudged it a bit. But then I want to get a good feel for who they are, and can they embrace this? Can they go through the struggle? Will they do what they can to persevere through the end? And a couple of years ago, I interviewed somebody that didn't have any Scrum experience at all. They said they did, but when you started talking to them, you realized, okay, they knew the vocabulary. But as I got to interview them, I got to see they really had that grit about them. They had that fire in their eyes, their determination to go through. So I hired that person. And I put them in a predicament that you wouldn't put somebody that was new to Agile or Scrum in, because we had a team that didn't deliver anything to the previous release. Every sprint they had nothing. They had a lot of great documents of what they analyzed and designed, but they didn't really deliver anything. So I put this person on the team. Not only were we able to get things done for every sprint, they were actually starting to use a definition of done, which at first they fought us tooth and nail that they wouldn't have time to get anything done. But they were getting things done and they were moving along, which was great. So when I hire people, you don't just say, hey, welcome to the company, see you when you give me your notice. As leaders, and this is going to sound like mother and apple pie, you have to have regular one-on-ones with them individually and the team. And when the one-on-ones first start out, they're more about what they've done, what you expect them to do, and things like that. But what we really want to do is build that relationship with them, to get them to feel comfortable with you, to open up and share different things, in order to feel vulnerable. And the funny thing is I've had leaders that haven't done one-on-ones because they said, oh, you're too busy. Well, how do you know? You haven't talked to me. And you need to build that rapport in. And the reason why is that same person I hired, even though they did a great job, in 6 months came to me and said, I don't think being a Scrum Master is for me. I think I'm going to quit. I don't think I've done enough. And I'm sitting there going, what? And he goes, it seems so easy for you, and man, despite everything I've done, I think I'm failing. And like the people on the beach that day, had to turn me around to see where I came from. I had to turn this Scrum Master around and say, look, when you came, this team didn't deliver anything. Now they're delivering things sprint over sprint, and now they're meeting the definition of done. Sure, maybe they're not working totally cross-functionally yet. Maybe they're not working to quite your expectations, but look from where it started and where you came. And then it made me realize, you know what, as leaders, and as anybody in an organization, because let's face it, an organization is a microcosm of society. We don't like to show the struggle. We just look at somebody and go, oh, they've been successful, it's been easy for them. This person I hired didn't see me struggling 7 or 8 years prior when I went through the same struggles with teams as we went through. But because they've never seen the struggle, they think If it's not easy for them, then there must be something wrong. And really, it's in the struggle. And it always reminds me of the Michael Jordan commercial that when he called out LeBron James to say, sorry I made it look so easy, sorry I made it look all about the glory, sorry you didn't see the hours I spent in the gym and the missed shots. It got me to realize that if we don't show our vulnerability of what we go through and have those real conversations that, especially changing organizations, is real hard work, how do they know to put up with the struggle if they don't know the struggle is acceptable? And over and above one-on-one meetings, you need to have group team meetings. So just like as you build a relationship with your individual person, you need the team to get comfortable in being able to be vulnerable in front of each other, to go, you know what, I made that same mistake. And not only do they get used to picking themselves up, they're helping pick each other up as they stumble like I did toward the water. So you build that team chemistry to go, you know what, we gotta deal with this shit today, let's work our way through it. And it's through transparency, collaboration, and open communication that we get there. Because as a team, we gotta learn to trust each other. And about a year ago, I was visiting my friend at the cottage, and I was in my manual wheelchair, and he's pushing me along his dock, and his dock went out into the water, and there was about 20 feet on each side, and the dock was just wide enough for my chair, so it made me kind of uncomfortable. And he goes, you know what really impresses me about you, Dave? And I'm like, what? He goes, the way you have to put your faith in others, how you have to put your life in other people's hands on a day-to-day basis. And I sat there and went, yeah, I guess that's right. I've always had to put my life in other people's hands. The second thing I was thinking about is, why did you choose this moment to tell me this? I did push me down to the dock. That kind of runs through your mind as you're looking over. So luckily I'm still here. But it's really building that bond and trust with each other. It's getting that chemistry together where everybody can feel vulnerable and open up and share those ideas. It's making failure okay. And I remember, I was having a one-on-one with that same person, and I was having a bad day. We're approaching our third release, and only 7 out of our 10 teams had things ready to release. 3 of them didn't. And I was going to myself, and I went to that person, I haven't done enough. I said, you know what, I was hoping we'd hit our release date, and we got extended a week. Maybe I overbid. And he looked at me and he goes, are you fucking blind? And I'm like, I can't walk, but I can see quite well. He goes, look at what you did when you started here. People were leaving the company, releases were getting delayed by months, and we're only delaying this release for a week. He had to go around, turn me around, and see how far I went. For him to be able to tell somebody that was his leader that required us to build our relationship. And I got to share with him, he got to see me struggle. He got to see me feel vulnerable. He got to see me at the weakest moment. Instead of me picking him up, he was picking me up to be able to go. Because really, the truth is, we only grow through struggle. We only grow through falling down and picking each other up. Especially all of us as really change agents in this room. How many of us can say it's ever easy? There's some days where we come in and we feel top of the world, and there's some days that we almost want to do anything else but what we do. And those of you with children probably go, well, I want my child to be a change agent, because that's tough work, and you have to leave your feelings at the door. If I ended the story there, it'd be a pretty good story. But when I was at the beach, I remember I made it back up, and I was sitting in my chair, and then there was this old guy, I could see in my peripheral vision, making his way down the beach. Now, I wasn't surprised that I saw an old person in Florida, but I was really surprised that he was walking along the beach. He was kind of going, he was stumbling a bit, but he was making his way. And then I seen him get into the water, and I seen the smile on his face when he hit the water. And as he was coming up in his walker, he passed by me, and he goes, I did it too. And I go to him, I go, oh, did seeing me go in the water encourage you to make that step? He goes, no, not really. He goes, seeing you make an idiot of yourself, falling on the sand and picking yourself up, he said, if you can do it, so can I. I like old people, right? They just cut to the chase. And that's what made me realize it's not the success that motivates people. It's the tenacity and struggle. Just like it was just me going through school and life. Just like doing the 5K walk for Terry Fox. Just like walking in the beach. And I look back and any time I work with an organization as they're trying to become this thing called Agile, or become different than they were, it's all through the struggles and the perseverance that influences people around you to do more than what they think they can. Because really, if you think about it, if we don't give into our fears, and if we embrace vulnerability, if we show the struggle, if we make it okay to fail, we'll think to ourselves, what is possible? What is possible? So just like I get help with Beat today, I'm going to stand up with the help of him, embrace my fear.